तिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादां सहगणान्विता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामिने गौतश्री नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमस्ते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी विषमानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमोस्तुते व्यास विशाल बुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दाय तत्र नेत्रे येन त्वया भारत तैलपूर्णः प्रज्वलितो ज्ञानमय प्रदीपः प्रपन्ना परिजाताय स्तोत्रवित्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे। Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to Bhakti-sastri class, and we are studying chapter 8 of Bhagavad-gita. So, it's already been a week. We started the second unit, and some of your essays are still pending. Ikshloka exams is pending. CBA is pending for unit 1 or unit 4 if you belong to the previous batch. So kindly complete on time. I want to express to the students of Bhakti-sastri that I feel that some of you are taking this course too lightly because I'm not being very strict about your attendance and your regularity in the submission of the assignments. So we will not give you any grace time period, which means if the course is supposed to end on a certain date, after that we'll not accept any assignments or any submissions. Fine. So if you don't complete the course, that's your problem, not my problem. Okay. So you have to complete it on the last date, whatever we release. And at the speed by which we are going for the batch 4, this is the 5th unit. You'll have only one more unit left. So you can assume that the course will end by maybe October. And for those who are in the 7th batch, the new batch, for you, the course will end by March or April of next year. So you don't have any time more than that. Be prepared for it. I'll put the message in the group also so that it is clear to all those who are absent as well. Because I feel that uh, only 2 classes a week is not a lot. If it was 4 classes a week, 5 classes a week, then maybe it's a very hectic schedule to catch up. But just 2 classes a week, that's pretty easy to follow until unless you have some serious emergency in life and you're not able to do the course. But otherwise, still not taking it very seriously. That means there is a problem in one's approach or attitude. So therefore, from next time, do make sure that you are doing the submissions on time. All right, Hare Krishna will begin with chapter 8, attaining the supreme. In chapter 7, Lord Krishna introduced devotional service. In chapter 8, Krishna is going to introduce pure devotional service. And in chapter 9, Krishna is going to describe pure devotional service. So these are how these chapters are evolving. In the previous chapter, chapter 7, Krishna ended with some technological terms, you can say, technical terms, not technological, technical terms of Bhagavad-gita. And Arjuna is going to now ask to Krishna what these terms are, what do they mean, what is it? Fine. So, Arjuna Uvacha Kim tad Brahma Kim Adhyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Adibhutam Cha Kim Proktam Adidaivam Kimuchyate. Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. Right? The word Kim means what? You can see the word Kim has come 5 times here in this verse. So he's asking 5 questions. Fine. Purport. In this chapter, Lord Krishna answers different questions from Arjuna, beginning with what is Brahman. The Lord also explains karma, fruitive activities, devotional service and yoga principles, and devotional service in its pure form. The Srimad Bhagavatam explains that the supreme absolute truth is known as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. In addition, the living entity, the individual soul, is also called Brahman. Arjuna also inquires about Atma, which refers to body, soul, and mind. According to the Vedic dictionary, Atma refers to the mind, soul, body, and senses also. Arjuna has addressed the Supreme Lord as Purushottama, Supreme Person, which means that he was putting these questions not simply to a friend, but to the Supreme Person, knowing him to be the supreme authority, able to give definitive answers. Why did Arjuna ask or inquire about these terms? Now let's look at the term Brahma. The word Brahma has come in Bhagavad-gita in many different verses previously. This is verse number 8.1. But the word Brahma has come in verse 2.7, 3.15, 4.24, 5.6, 5.20, 6.27, 6.44, 7.29. And in all these verses, the word Brahman did not mean the same. It did not have the same meaning. So Arjuna is just clarifying that what exactly does Brahman mean? Because Krishna is saying if you know Brahman or if you know these terms, you will be qualified to attain liberation at the end of your life. Fine. These are objects of knowledge for someone desiring liberation. So now Arjuna is keen to get liberated. Therefore, he begins to contemplate on the meaning of these terms. And he's checking if he knows the answer correctly. What is the exact meaning of these words? Fine. Likewise with other terms also. Next verse. 8.2. Adhiyagya katham kotra dehesmin madhusudana prayanakale cha katham keyosi niyatatmabhihi. What is the Lord of sacrifice and how does he live in the body, O Madhusudan? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? 5 questions in the previous verse, 3 questions in this verse. In total, he's asking 8 questions. Okay. Srila Prabhupada is going to begin to explain. Though Krishna has not started giving the answer, but Prabhupada is already giving the answer. Purport. Sridhi Prabhu, please read.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Lord of sacrifice may refer to either Krishna or Vishnu. Vishnu is the chief of the primal demigods, including Brahma and Shiva. And Indra is the chief of the administrative demigods. Both Indra and Vishnu are worshipped by yajna performances. But here, Arjuna asks who is actually the lord of yajna, sacrifice, and how the lord is residing within the body of the living entity. Arjuna addresses the Lord as Madhusudan because Krishna once killed a demon named Madhu. Actually, these questions, which are of the nature of doubts, should not have arisen in the mind of Arjuna, because Arjuna is a Krishna conscious devotee. Therefore, these doubts are like demons. Since Krishna is expert in killing demons, Arjuna here addresses him as Madhusudan so that Krishna might kill the demonic doubts that arise in Arjuna's mind. Now, the word prayan kale in this verse is very significant because whatever we do in life will be tested at the time of death. Arjuna is very anxious to know of those who are constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness. What should be their position at that final moment? At the time of death, all bodily functions are disrupted and the mind is not in a proper condition. Thus, disturbed by the bodily situation, one may not be able to remember the Supreme Lord. Maharaj Kulashekar, a great devotee, prays, "My dear Lord, just now I am quite healthy, and it is better that I die immediately so that the swan of my mind can seek entrance at the stem of your lotus feet." The metaphor is because the swan, a bird of the water, takes pleasure in digging into the lotus flower, its sporting proclivity is to enter the lotus flower. Maharaj Kulashekar says to the Lord, "Now my mind is undisturbed and I am quite healthy. If I die immediately, thinking of your lotus feet, then I am sure that my performance of your devotional service will become perfect. But if I have to wait for my natural death, then I do not know what will happen because at that time the bodily functions will be disrupted. My throat will be choked up, and I do not know whether I shall be able to chant your name. Better let me die immediately." Arjuna questions how a person can fix his mind on Krishna's lotus feet at such a time. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, of all the questions which Arjuna asks, Krishna is going to give maximum time for explaining the question number 8, the last question. How to remember Krishna at the time of death, right? So he quickly answers 7 questions in just 2 verses. And then he takes the rest of the chapter, 24 verses, to explain the answer to the 8th question. All right. Now, the answers are there in the next verse, but we'll quickly look at what those answers are. Brahma. So, Arjuna's confusion is, he's thinking, does Brahman refer to the Jiva or does it refer to the Paramatma? That's the confusion. Okay. Adhyatma. Atma here refers to body. Adhi means above the body. So Arjuna's confusion is, does Adhyatma refer to group of senses? But it refers to the group of subtle elements. Karma. Arjuna's confusion is, does it refer to ordinary day-to-day actions or does it refer to actions prescribed by the Vedas? Adibhuta. Bhuta means living entities. So Arjuna's confusion is, does it refer to product of elements or it refers to the gross bodies? Daiva, higher power. So for Arjuna, the confusion is, does it refer to demigods or to the universal form? And Adi Yagya, Yagya means sacrifice. So who is the presiding deity of the sacrifice? Arjuna's confusion is it Indra or is it Lord Vishnu? Fine. So that's the confusion in Arjuna's mind. And Krishna is going to now answer those things. Fine. Okay. I had this beautiful. I This is a verse very famous from Kunmala Stotra, and Srila Prabhupada used to recite it quite often. That Krishna, let my mind be now stuck in your lotus feet. So I thought I will play the audio for you for this particular. It's very sweet the way Prabhupada sings it.
कृष्णा त्वदीयपदपङ्कजपञ्जरान्तम् अद्यैव विशतु मे मानसराजहंस प्राणप्रयाणसमये कफवातपित्तौ कण्ठावरोधनविधौ स्मरणं कुतस्ते कृष्ण त्वदीयपदपङ्कजपञ्जनान्तम् अद्यैव विशतु मे मानसराजहंस प्राणप्रयाण समये कफवातपित्तौ कण्ठावरोधनविधौ स्मरणं कुतस्ते.
So what is Krishna's answer? 8.3. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Svabhodhyatmamuchyate Bhuta Bhavodbhava Karo Visargaha Karma Sangitaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma or fruitive activities. Abhishek Prabhu, please read.
Hare Krishna, Prabhupada. Brahman is indestructible and eternally existing, and its constitution is not changed at any time. But beyond Brahman, there is a Para-Brahman. Brahman refers to the living entity, and the Para-Brahman refers to the Supreme Personality of the Godhead. The constitutional position of the living entity is different from the position he takes in the material world. In material consciousness, his nature is to try to be the lord of the matter. But in the spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness, his position is to serve the Supreme. When the living entity is in material consciousness, he has to take on the various bodies in the material world. That is called karma, or varied creation by the force of the material consciousness. The Vedic literature, the living entity is called Jivatma and Brahman, but he is never called Para-Brahman. The living entity, Jivatma, takes different positions. Sometimes he merges into the dark material nature and identifies himself with the matter, and sometimes he identifies himself with the superior spiritual nature. Therefore, he is called the Supreme Lord's marginal energy. According to his identification with material or the spiritual nature, he receives a material or a spiritual body. In material nature, he may take a body from any of the 84 lakh species of the life, but in spiritual nature he has only one body. In the material nature, he is manifested sometimes as a man, demigod, animal, beast, bird, etc., according to his karma. To attain the material heavenly planets and enjoy their facilities, he sometimes performs sacrifices, yajna, but when his merit is exhausted, he returned to the earth again in the form of the man. This process is called karma. The Chandrogya Upanishad describes the Vedic sacrificial process. On the sacrificial altar, five kinds of offerings are made into five kinds of fire. The five kinds of fire are conceived of as the heavenly planets, clouds, the earth, the man, and woman. And the five kinds of sacrificial offerings are faith, the enjoyer on the moon, the rain, grain, and the semen. In the process of sacrifice, the living entity takes specific sacrifices to attain specific heavenly planets and consequently reaches them. When the merit of the sacrifice is exhausted, The living entity descends to the earth in the form of the rain, then takes on the form of the grain, and the grain are eaten by the man and transformed into the semen, which impregnates a woman, and thus the living entity once again attains the human form to perform the sacrifice and so repeat the same cycle. In this way, the living entity perpetually comes and goes on the material path. The Krishna conscious person, however, avoids such sacrifices. He takes directly to Krishna consciousness and thereby prepares himself to return to Godhead. Impersonalists, commentators on the Bhagavad-gita unreasonably assume that Brahman takes the form of Jiva in the material world, and to substantiate this, they refer the chapter 15, verse 7 of the Gita. But in this verse, the Lord also speaks of the living entity as an eternal fragment of the myself. The fragment of the God, the living entity, may fall down into the material world, but the Supreme Lord Achyuta never falls down. Therefore, this assumption that the Supreme Brahman assumes the form of Jiva is not acceptable. It is important to remember that in Vedic literature, Brahman, the living entity, is distinguished from the Para Brahman, the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Prabhuji,
Krishna.
one question. Yes. Prabhuji, in this
Yes.
year, there are 5 kinds of fire and 5 kinds of sacrifices. Are they connected or correlated one to one, or they are in general 5? Like rain can be related to earth, or this women, I am not able to understand one to one how they can be related, because there are 5 sacrifices. So technically they should be related to, each one of them should be related to the other one.
I don't know how you're trying to understand this whole explanation, but anyway, let me make it clear for you. What is being explained is in Chandogya Upanishad, it is explained that a human being who is a grihastha should engage in 5 kinds of fire sacrifice on daily basis. Okay, understood. Now, if you engage in those 5 kinds of fire sacrifices, then the material nature is going to reciprocate with you in a certain way. What is that reciprocation? The reciprocation is this, that if you engage in 5 kinds of fire sacrifices, you have done your dharma properly. You engage in your dharma properly, you'll acquire punya out of it. So because of that, you will get elevated to the heavenly planets. Now, from the heavenly planets, then the jiva has to someday come down again. Shine punya martya lokam vishanti. As the pious credit gets over, you have to come down, right? So if you engage in those 5 kinds of fire sacrifices, the material nature will make a certain process of your coming down and taking birth again. And what is that process? So that process is explained in this way, that now this whole explanation is given in Mahabharata. From there it is taken. Okay. So as as one has reached the heavenly planet, then when that demigod, I mean, this person who is in heaven now is not a demigod who is in charge of the planet. He is a visiting demigod, you can say. Like you visit a foreign country, so you go on a visa, right? So you are a visitor there. So you become a citizen of the heavenly planet for a certain period of time. So when that time period gets exhausted, then that jiva falls from the heaven. Okay. So when that jiva will fall from the heaven, if that jiva has done all those 5 fire sacrifices in the human form, that jiva will be collected by the clouds. Fine. And then from the clouds, that jiva will then come down in the form of rain, along with the rainwater. Then from the rainwater, it will go into the earth, the soil. From the soil, then that jiva will go into a grain, a crop. Then that crop will be eaten by a human being. Then that jiva will go into the man's body, into the semen of that man's body. And from the semen of that man's body, he will go into the woman's body. And then from the woman's womb, that jiva will come out as a human being. Only when as a human being you have done 5 sacrifices a day.
It means, Prabhuji, the 5 sacrifices which we have done in our form as human being, we enjoy those punya karmas in heavenly planets also, and based on the same karmas, again the rebirth takes place. Means these 5 karmas, they factor in the heavenly enjoyment also, plus rebirth also.
Plus rebirth as a human being.
Okay, understood.
Fine. So now it is kind of a metaphor. You engage in 5 sacrifices here, so your fall from heaven is also happening as a sacrifice. Okay. Getting it? Now, what is a fire sacrifice? Pouring ghee into fire. So there are 2 things. One is the object that you're pouring, and the pit, which is receiving. So then the whole process of fall of the living entity from heaven is also explained in that way. From the heaven, the jiva is poured. It falls into the clouds. From the clouds, it is poured. It falls into the, the soil. From the soil, it is poured. It falls into the grain. From the grain, it is poured. It falls into a man's body. From the man's body, it's poured into the woman's body. And then it comes out as a human being. Okay.
It
Hare
means
Krishna.
these punya karmas, we are getting human body again. If we get animal body, then what happens? Same process.
What same process?
Means here we are taking that when we are coming back as rebirth, we are getting human body only.
So why you are getting human body? Because you have done those 5 sacrifices.
Okay,
Otherwise you will get any kind of body.
Correct.
Yeah. There's no guarantee that you will get a body also, because it is said when the jiva is falling from heaven to earth, in the interim area which is occupied by the Rakshasas, they may eat up the jiva.
Again, depending upon our karma.
Depending upon your karma. No security. So there's no insurance basically.
Okay, understood.
Prabhuji, basically it is the same soul which is traveling during the whole process, or it is that, we based on our karma, we take birth as a human being with the effect of all those, with the help of that process. Or it's the same soul traveling throughout the process.
Prabhu, we are talking it individually. If you have done such fire sacrifices as a living entity, as in your human birth, then this
Yes,
is what
okay.
happens to you. So it happens to you if you have done those fire sacrifices. It's not for every single soul, this is the journey.
Okay.
Right? This happens to you as a soul if you have done those 5 kinds of fire sacrifices. And this is the process for you.
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you.
And this is supposed to be the ideal situation, doing this 5.
This is supposed to be what?
Ideal situation.
This is not the ideal situation. Ideal situation is to Krishna Bhakti. As the ideal situation.
Okay.
Right. It's not the ideal situation. It is only explaining, the Vedas are explaining that if you do 5 kinds of fire sacrifices, this is what arrangement is made for you by the material nature.
Understood.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavat
Hmm.
Pranam. This is for one who has done this all kinds of fire sacrifices, and they must be very pious. But what about who are sinful living entity or sinful human beings who come? And they also come to the same process, or for
Why
them
they
there is
will
some.
come to the same process? They will have different experiences. First of all, those who are sinful, how will they go to heaven? So if you don't go to heaven, what is the point of falling from heaven? First thing, right? If you don't go to heaven, then how do you fall from there?
Yeah. But we see some kind of sinful human beings. So this,
So for them, there are so many other arrangements. Na? Yamadutas will come, drag you to the Yamaloka, suffer in hellish planets. So many other different arrangements are there.
But for coming down, then
Coming down from where? First of all, if you don't have punya, how will you go up?
okay, okay.
Coming down from where? I mean, only if there is punya, then go to heaven, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, there is no coming down. And here, a particular, a very specific path has been created. Now, there are so many possibilities. How is it being made certain that that grain is eaten by a human and then it goes into a human body? If that grain is eaten by an animal, then you go into an animal body. And if you go into an animal body, will you take birth as a human being? No, right? So the nature is giving a very specific path for those who have done that kind of specific karma. For those who have not done that karma, there are thousands of other options or possibilities.
And Prabhuji, those who have performed the Krishna conscious pure devotional services during this human life, so they will stay back in Golok Dham.
If they have done pure devotional service, stay back means what? First they have to go to Swarupa, right?
Yes.
First they have to go.
Okay, and they will reach there and they will be there and serving the Lord.
Yeah, eternally, if they have completed their Christian consciousness.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji,
Hmm.
what happens? Can these human beings be promoted from heavenly planets to Golak or Vaikuntha also from here directly? Instead of coming as on the cloud and then coming to the earth and then that. Can they go directly there if they have done? Is it possible?
Yes, it is possible. It all depends on what you do in heaven. It's possible. What you do in heaven, that will decide. If you do bhakti in heaven, then yes, you go from there up, move up. But then the path of going back to Godhead through heaven and upper planetary systems is also very time taking. The fastest way to go back to Godhead is from planet Earth. From the heaven, the time taken is more because you from there go to higher planets, then from there to Brahmaloka, then you have to wait for Brahmaji to die. Only when Brahma has lived for his whole life and Brahma goes to Vaikuntha or Goloka, then you also get a chance. So that is technically called Krama Mukti. Krama means gradual. Krama Mukti. So it's not desirable that one takes so much time if one is already getting a chance to do it quickly or faster in human form of life on planet Earth.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. We left the material body here and we soul will go, right? Some of the is it possible with the same material body can enter into the spiritual body? Like I heard about Bhakta Tukaram, he went to the same material body.
Again, you are getting confused. If you are saying same material body, so please do remember that a devotee's body does not remain same as material body. After you have become a liberated soul, your body is no longer material.
Okay. Yes, it becomes spiritualized.
Spiritualized. So it's not material body anymore.
Okay.
All right. So next, look at next verse 8.4. Adibhutam sharo bhavaha purusaschadidaivatam adiyagyoham evatra dehe dehabritangvara. Or best of the embodied beings, the physical nature which is constantly changing is called Adibhuta, the material manifestation. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods, like those of the sun and moon, is called Adideva. And I, the Supreme Lord, represented as the super soul in the heart of every embodied being, am called Adi Yagya, the Lord of sacrifice. Yes, Alok Prabhuji, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dandavat. The physical nature is constantly changing. Material bodies generally pass through 6 stages. They are born, they grow, they remain for some duration, they produce some byproducts, they dwindle, and then they vanish. This physical nature is called Abhibhuta. It is created at a certain point and will be annihilated at a certain point. The conception of the universal form of the Supreme Lord, which includes all the demigods and their different planets, is called Adi Devata. And person in the body, along with individual soul, is the super soul, a planetary representation of Lord Krishna. The super soul is called Paramatma or Adi Yagna and is situated in the heart. The word Eva is particularly important in the context of this verse because by this word, the Lord stresses that the Paramatma is not different from him. The super soul, the supreme personality of Godhead, seated beside the individual soul, is the witness of individual soul's activity and is the source of soul's various type of consciousness. The super soul gives the individual soul an opportunity to act freely and witness his activities. The functions of all these different manifestations of Supreme Lord automatically becomes clarified for the pure Krishna conscious devotee engaged in the transcendental service to the Lord. The gigantic universal form of the Lord called Adi Devata is contemplated by the neophyte who cannot approach the Supreme Lord in his manifestation as Super Soul. The neophyte is advised to contemplate the universal form or Virat Purusha, whose legs are considered the lower planets, whose eyes are considered the sun and the moon, and the whose head is considered the upper planetary system. Hare Krishna.
So in short, these are the answers given by Lord Krishna. What is Brahman? Conscious Jiva. What is Adhyatma? The eternal nature of the soul. What is Karma? Activity that develops a material body. What is Adibhuta? The material manifestation. What is Adideva? The universal form. What is Adiyagya? The super soul. How is Adiyagya known in the body? In the heart of every living being, the Adiyagya is situated. How to know you or Krishna at the time of death? By remembrance in the mind. And Krishna says, if you understand these 8 things, you become qualified to be liberated at the end of your life. Does the Bhagavad-gita talk about these 8 things properly, completely? Yes or no? Does the Bhagavad-gita talk about these 8 things?
Yes.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
So, if you know Bhagavad-gita properly, you are qualified to be liberated at the time of death. Right? That's the inference. Because Gita talks about these 8 things completely, explains these 8 things. Remembering Krishna, the main section of the chapter. How to remember Krishna. Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yaha prayati samadbhavam yati nasti yatra sanshayah. Okay, there is a question in the chat box. What is the question, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, in the last 2 lines, it is said that a neophyte is advised to contemplate on the universal form. So, I've read, I think, in Srimad Bhagavatam that contemplation on the universal form is very difficult. right? When Shukdev Goswami also explains about it, it is said that it is very difficult. But here we see that Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that neophyte is advised to contemplate on the universal form instead of the super soul, I mean the Paramatma form or the two-handed form of Krishna. So how is it?
Good question, Prabhuji. So Prabhupada here is not talking about someone neophyte on the path of Bhakti Yoga. That's not the meaning he's taking here. What he's saying is, if you are not qualified for Bhakti, if you're not qualified for Bhakti, and you are on the path of Ashtanga Yoga, you know, right? Then in that sense, you are a neophyte. So then the only path remaining for you is to contemplate on the universal form of the Lord. So here neophyte does not mean neophyte on the path of Bhakti. Here someone who is on the path of yoga is being called as neophyte compared to someone who's engaged in devotional service. So those who are neophytes in that way, for them the option is to contemplate on the universal form of the Lord. That's the advice given to them. Because they cannot engage in direct devotional service to the Lord. Yeah. They are neophytes. Therefore, somewhere Prabhupada mentions that someone who is a neophyte on the path of devotional service is much more advanced than someone who is perfect on the path of Ashtanga Yoga. Why is more advanced? Because his aspiration is higher. So he's more advanced. Please pronounce 8.54 section, second last word. 8 point.
Prabhuji, this 8.5, the second last word in the second line, nastatra.
Okay, we'll come to it. Don't worry. Yes,
Thank you.
a question for a non-human body, example of stone or tree body. Where does the super soul reside and where is the jiva? For a non-human body, where does the soul reside and where does the jiva? We already discussed this, I think, in chapter 2 or introduction. The soul resides in the place where the five life airs, they cancel out each other. Every jiva has a heart, you should know. Every living entity has a heart. Maybe not a physical heart organ, but there is a place where the soul resides. It's called Hridaya or Hridi. And in every entity, that Hridaya is there, the point where the soul resides. Right? So it's in a tree also, it's in a plant also, it's in a stone also, it's everywhere. Fine. Okay. Yes, 8.5. Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram prayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra sanshayah. Whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. You know? Madbhavam, smaran, one who remembers Krishna at the time of death. So, one attains Krishna's nature, Madbhavam. What is that nature of Krishna? Krishna is sinless, completely. That is Krishna's nature. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan Prabhu says, Krishna has 8 qualities. These are the 8 qualities of Krishna. Sinless, ageless, deathless, without grief, without hunger, without thirst, blissful, desires instantly fulfilled. And then Krishna is saying, if you remember me at the time of death, you are going to get all these 8 qualities. You become sinless, ageless, deathless, without grief, without hunger, without thirst, blissful, and your desires will get instantly fulfilled. Madbhavam. One attains nature just like that of Krishna. So, Smaran means remembering Krishna in one's mind. Why Krishna said this verse to Arjuna? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains to us that Arjuna was telling Krishna, Krishna, if I die now, you are right in front of me. So I can behold your form through my eyes. I can see you and I can remember you and I can attain your nature, Madbhava. But what if I die when you are not in front of my eyes? So then Krishna is telling Arjuna, at that time, then I'll appear in your mind's eye, in the eyes of your mind. And how will I appear in your mind's eye? If you remember me, Smaran, then I'll appear in your mind's eye. And that way you can know me. So this is very good information for us, that Krishna can appear in any way. And one way Krishna appears is in the form of a mental picture in the mind, right? Isn't it? So one devotee was giving a very beautiful explanation. He was saying, just like if you invite Krishna in a deity, Krishna comes in the deity. Isn't it? Similarly, we have to learn to invite Krishna in the name of Krishna. We have to learn to invite Krishna in the book Bhagavad-gita. We have to learn to invite Krishna in a mental picture of Krishna. Now, why we have to invite Krishna? Because without Krishna's presence, that name is actually not Krishna Nam. Then Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said it's only alphabets. Without Krishna's presence, then Bhagavad-gita is not Krishna Vani. It's only a combination of words and letters. Right? And without Krishna's presence, a picture of Krishna is not Krishna. It is like Krishna. Isn't it? So we have to invite Krishna. And inviting Krishna, then after Krishna has come into it, then we associate with Krishna. And that gives us Krishna consciousness. But we invite Krishna in Krishna Nam, in Krishna Katha, in Krishna Kirtan, in Krishna Ram. That consciousness makes the difference. That is why a non-devotee may read Bhagavad Gita for thousands of times and may not get any association of Krishna. Same words, same shlokas, same verses, everything is same. But there is no Krishna there. Right? And if this process or science of inviting Krishna is learned, then you can invite Krishna anywhere. Because Krishna is actually everywhere. Krishna is not just in the words of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is also in all the alphabets of English, Sanskrit, Hindi. Krishna is everywhere. Right? Krishna is sound. So in that way, Krishna is in any sound. So those who know the science of inviting Krishna, for them then nothing becomes material or remains material. For them everything becomes Krishnized, Krishnamay. So they say the whole world is Krishnamay, Jagat is Krishnamay. Then poison is also Krishna. As Prabhupada said, stool is also Krishna. Right? Everything becomes Krishnamay because of that consciousness. So here Krishna says, I'll appear in your mind if you remember me at the time of death. And that's how you'll be able to see me and in my nature. Fine. Let's look at the purpose. I want you to notice something in the purpose of verses 5, 6, 7, and 8. Something distinct is there in these four purports. So you notice that. Anjali Mataji, please read.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. In this verse, the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. Anyone who quits his body in Krishna consciousness is at once transferred to the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is the purest of the pure. Therefore, anyone who is constantly Krishna conscious is also the purest of the pure. The word smaran, remembering, is important. Remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul who has not practiced Krishna consciousness in devotional service. Therefore, one should practice Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life. If one wants to achieve success at the end of his life, the process of remembering Krishna is essential. Therefore, one should constantly, incessantly, sorry, Prabhu, chant the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya has advised that one be as tolerant as a tree. Taror api shahshuna. There may be so many impediments for a person who is chanting Hare Krishna. Nonetheless, tolerating all these impediments, one should continue to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, so that at the end of one's life, one can have the full benefit of Krishna consciousness. Thank you,
Thank you.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Next verse. Is that only applicable to Krishna? That if I remember Krishna at the time of death, I get his nature? Then Krishna generalizes the whole concept. And he says, no, this is a general concept. Whatever you remember at the time of death, that state you attain. So it says, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam त्यजति अन्ते कलेवरम tam tam eveti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body of son of Kunti, and that state he will attain without fail. Shamana Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. The process of changing one's nature at the critical moment of death is here explained. A person who at the end of his life quits his body thinking of Krishna attains the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. But it is not true that a person who thinks of something other than Krishna attains the same transcendental state. This is a point we should not very carefully. How can one die in the proper state of mind? Maharaja Bharata, although a great personality, thought of a deed at the end of his life, and so in his next life he was transformed into the body of the deer. Although as a deer he remembered his past activities, he had to accept that animal body. Of course, one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. So this life creates one's next life. If in one's present life one lives in the mode of goodness and always thinks of Krishna, it is possible for one to remember Krishna at the end of one's life. That will help one be transformed to the transcendental nature of Krishna. If one is transcendentally absorbed in Krishna's service, then his next body will be transcendental, spiritual, not material. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare is the best process for successfully changing one's state of being at the end of one's life. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Now it's a difficult thing to remember Krishna at all times, right? So Arjuna may question that, please, it's not very practical that I fight also and I think of you also. So Krishna says, you have to do both. Remember me as well as fight. Arjuna may say, well, it is easy to do one thing at a time. You can ask me to just meditate upon you. I was anyway ready to do that. Go to the forest, sit alone, and I just think of you. But you are not telling me to do that. You are telling me to fight. And now, if I'm ready to fight, then you are telling me to think of you. So Krishna is saying, no, do both together. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhya cha mayarpit manobuddhir mam evashyasya samshayah. So tasmat sarveshu kaleshu, at all times do what? Mam anusmara, remember me. Yudhya cha, but don't just remember me, fight for me, do something, right? Mai arpit mano buddhir. And how is that possible? It's only possible if you have offered your mind and intelligence to me. Mamai vestasya samshayaha. And then it's sure that you're going to come back to me. So here you see the order in which Krishna is instructing Arjuna to remember and fight is very important. It's Sanskrit. In Sanskrit, the order of words do not matter much. So Krishna could have also said, Mam yudhya anusmaracha. But he did not say Mam yudhya anusmaracha. He said, Mam anusmara yudhya cha. He's teaching us a principle. Mostly people, they will do everything and then go to God. I've done a good job. Give me the result to Krishna. Give the result to Krishna. So they will always keep God at the end of their activities. But Krishna is saying here, no. You first remember me, think of me, and then you engage in your duties or your responsibilities or your activities. Anusmara, think of me. Anusmara also means constantly. And you engage in your duties, right? So therefore, Prabhupada gave us a similar formula. Get up in the morning, begin your day with Krishna consciousness. Mam Anusmara, right? 3 to 4 hours of sadhana, chanting, hearing, reading, taking darshan of the deity, doing your puja, Mam Anusmara. And then you go out. If you are a businessman, go do your business. If you're a housewife, do your household chores. If you're a student, study. Yudhyacha. You engage in activities, right? So Mam Anusmara Yudhyacha. Follow that pattern. You remember me and you fight for me. So we have to always remember Krishna and always keep working for Krishna's pleasure. Doing one of the two might be easier, but both have to be done. Let's read the seventh property. The translation is, therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. Very small purport. This instruction to Arjuna is very important for all men engaged in material activities. Now, who amongst us are not engaged in material activities? We all are engaged in material activities, right? The law does not say that one should give up his prescribed duties or engagements. One can continue them and at the same time think of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. This will free one from material contamination and engage the mind and intelligence in Krishna. By chanting Krishna's name, one will be transferred to the supreme planet Krishna Loka without a doubt. If you have listened to some of the Abhangas of Tukaram Maharaj, this is exactly what Tukaram Maharaj preached in Abhangas. If you are a potter, you remain a potter. Keep on chanting the name of Hari Vithala, Ram Vithala, and keep on chanting those names. If you are a washerman, be a washerman. Keep on chanting the names of Vithala. This is what, because, I mean, only Prabhupada is an Acharya, or Bhakti-siddhanta is an Acharya, who came with a mission of making Brahmanas, or making missionaries of. So it's only Prabhupada or Bhakti-siddhanta who came up with this mission. We have to make Brahmanas or missionaries of Krishna consciousness. So their preaching is flavored with that mission. But most of the acharyas before them, their teaching was this, that You be where you are and you chant Krishna now. There was more focus on personal sadhana. However, with the advent of Bhakti Siddhanta and Prabhupada, there's also a lot of focus on prachar, preaching, right? They preach Krishna consciousness. Become a Brahmana, preach Krishna consciousness. But otherwise, previously, everyone, they had this similar mode of preaching. Whether it's Tukaram Maharaj, whether it's Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, everyone. Next. Abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasa nanya paramam purusham divyam yati parthanuchintayan. So how is it possible? I remember you and at the same time fight. Krishna says, Abhyasa, practice Arjuna. By practice it is possible. Abhyasa yoga yuktena. But my mind will go away into different subjects. Chetasa na gamina. Don't let your mind to go away on other things. Na gamina. Don't let it go away. Keep it fixed on me. Paramam purusham divyam yati parthanuchintaya. He all meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His mind constantly engaged in remembering me. Undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. Don't let the mind go away. Na anyagamina. No. Let's read the purport. Sarvadev Giridhari Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Purport. In this verse, Lord Krishna stressed the importance of remembering him. One's memory of Krishna is revived by chanting the Maha Mantra Hare Krishna. By this practice of chanting and hearing the sound of vibration of the Supreme Lord, one's ear, tongue, and mind are engaged. This mystic meditation is very easy to practice and it helps one attain the Supreme Lord Purushama, means enjoyer. Although living entities belong to the material energy of the Supreme Lord, they are in material contamination. They think themselves enjoyers, but they are not the supreme enjoyer. Here it is clearly stated that the supreme enjoyer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his different manifestation and plenary expansion as Narayana, Vasudeva, etc. The devotee can constantly think of the object of worship, the Supreme Lord, in any of his futures, Narayana, Krishna, Rama, etc., by chanting Hare Krishna. This practice will purify him, and at the end of his life, due to his constant chanting, he will be transferred to the kingdom of God. Yoga practice is meditation of the Supreme Soul within. Similarly, by chanting Hare Krishna, one fixes his mind always on the Supreme Lord. The mind is fickle, and therefore it is necessary to engage the mind by force to think of Krishna. One example often given is that of the caterpillar that think of becoming butterfly and so is transformed into butterfly in the same life. Similarly, if we constantly think of Krishna, it is certain that at the end of our lives, we shall have the same bodily constitutions as Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, one small question. This sloka number 7, in translation, it is categorically stated, always think of me in the form of Krishna. Now, in purport of 8, it is written, devotee can constantly think of the object in any of his features, Narayana, Krishna, Rama.
Yeah. One can think in any of the features.
First, it is said by chanting the mantra. So, ultimately, when we remember Krishna, we have to chant mantra. When we have to remember Rama or Narayana, then we have to chant mantra only. But specifically in 8.7, it was written, always think of my form as Krishna. Here options are given.
See, Prabhupada is doing two things here. One thing is giving you the mood of Gaudiya Vaishnavas. What is the mood of Gaudiya Vaishnava? They prefer to only think of Krishna as Krishna, Shyam Sundar Krishna, exclusively. Fine. So in the translation, you get that mood of Prabhupada, the Gaudiya Vaishnava mood. exclusively think of Krishna in the form of Krishna. But as a Siddhant, Prabhupada is explaining in the purport that if one remembers any form of Krishna at the time of death, that person is going to attain liberation or mukti. Got it? So you can say the purport is a generalized Vaishnava Siddhant and the translation is a Gaudiya Vaishnava, specific Siddhant. Got it?
Probably that is to facilitate the devotees to come under Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, you see, when an Acharya is giving commentary, an Acharya has multiple purposes to fulfill. Because they are going to be varieties of reader of the book. So an Acharya is going to give something for everyone. For those who are Gaudiya Vaishnavas, when Krishna says, remember me, it's remember Krishna alone. Right? But let's say a Sri Vaishnava comes across Prabhupada's translation of Bhagavad-gita, then that Sri Vaishnava is already focused on worshipping Lord Ramachandra or Lord Narayana. Then for that Sri Vaishnava, the purport is there. You can remember Krishna in any of the forms at the time of your death. You're getting.
Yes.
So that's how it is. All right. Now you might have noticed in these four purports, there is something which Prabhupada repeats again and again. What is that?
Chanting.
Remembrance
of the name of God.
Remembering.
Yeah, he
Remembering
says
Krishna at the
chanting of
time of
Hare
Remember.
Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
He repeats in these four verses again and again. And interestingly, in verse 5, he mentioned the Mahamantra twice, completely, in just one short purport. Right? The whole Mahamantra is given 2 times. And in the next verse also, the Mahamantra is given completely. Now, you can study the whole Bhagavad-gita, you'll find nowhere Prabhupada mentions the entire Mahamantra. Or does mention the chanting of Hare Krishna so many times. But in these 4 verses, he's mentioning it again and again. So what do we understand from that? We understand that Krishna is talking about remembering Krishna at the time of death. From Prabhupada's personal understanding and realization, he is saying the easiest way to achieve that objective is chanting of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra.
Prabhuji, can it be the same thing as we say bhakti is the process, bhakti is the goal? So chanting is the process, chanting is the goal. We should always chant only.
You can say anything, but that's not the point I'm making. Right?
Okay.
The point I'm making is that Prabhupada is trying to say here, the easiest way of remembering Krishna is to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. There can be so many ways to remember Krishna, but that's the easiest for Kali Yuga people, that you always chant Hare Krishna. Fine. All right. Then we go to the next section, which is remembering Krishna by Yoga Mishra Bhakti. Because the subject matter of remembrance has been taken up here. So, Krishna can be remembered by anyone, right? Even a yogi does meditate upon Krishna as Paramatma. And devotee also meditates upon Krishna, on Krishna's Archa Vigraha, or Krishna's Nama, Krishna's Guna, Krishna Leela. So Krishna is going to then explain the process of remembrance for these 2 kinds of yoga practitioners. One is for a Ashtanga yogi, and the other is for a devotee. Fine. So in verses 9 to 13, he talks about those who engage in Ashtanga yoga and try to remember God at all times. And then from verse number 14, he will begin to explain about those who are engaging in devotional service and trying to remember Krishna at all times. Okay. So remembering Krishna by Yoga Mishra Bhakti. How? In these 9 ways. Kavim Puranam Anushashitaram Anor Aniyangsam Anusmaredyah Sarvasya Dhataram Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parastat. Remembering the Super Soul by meditating on these 9 qualities of the Super Soul. This is something which I understood after reading the commentary of Baldevidya Bhushan and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on Bhagavad-gita, that when we say, right, seeing the Atma, the soul, or seeing the super soul, what does it mean? Does it mean you see them through your naked eyes? That's what it means to see the soul everywhere, or to see the super soul everywhere. So the Acharyas explain, no, that's not the meaning of it. To see them means to always meditate on their qualities in your using your intelligence, buddhi, and mana. That is actual darshana, not the darshan of seeing through the eyes. Darshan here means always contemplating on it using your mind and intelligence. So seeing Atma means always contemplating on the qualities of Atma. Seeing Paramatma means always contemplating on the qualities of Paramatma. That's what seeing means, right? So how does a yogi see the Paramatma everywhere? By contemplating on these 9 qualities of the Paramatma. What are those 9 qualities? Kavim Puranam Anushashitaram Anor Aniyang Samanusmaretyah Sarvasya Dhataram Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parastat. Translation. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person. You see, it's very clear. Meditate upon the Supreme Person as whom? As the one who knows everything, as he who is the oldest, as he who is the controller, as he who is smaller than the smallest, as he who is the maintainer of everything, as he who is beyond all material conception, as he who is inconceivable, as he is always a person. Now you see how our teachings, our Bhagavad Gita, the verses of Bhagavad Gita are capsules. And those capsules have so much of realized knowledge, kept in. Here is very clearly mentioned, a yogi should always meditate upon the Lord as a person. That's what it means to be personal in your Krishna consciousness. To always meditate upon the Lord as a person, Krishna as a person, Paramatma as a person, the deity as a person, the holy name as a person. Meditating upon the Lord as a person. Now, when you meditate upon the Lord as a person, then you already become conscious of the likes and dislikes of the Lord, the desires of the Lord, the wants of the Lord, everything. You become conscious of that. So meditate upon the Lord as a person. He is luminous like the sun and is transcendental beyond this material nature, right? Beyond this material nature. We don't see like that, of course, because our consciousness is not so elevated. We don't see like that. But let's say we can talk of a pujari who always treats the deity he is serving as a person. How different will be that pujari's approach than from a pujari who, just as a matter of duty, serves the deity? Very different approach. Just like how will be the approach of a mother who serves the child just as a matter of duty? And how will be the approach of a mother who thinks this is my child? Very different, isn't it? So a mother who thinks this is my child, from the moment she is awake to the moment she is going to sleep, she's always meditating. What can I do for the child? What can I cook for him or her? What is the next plan for when will the child sit and do the homework? When will the child go for this extra class? When will the child go and play? What clothes will that child wear today? It's a constant meditation. Mm, will the maid servant think like that? No, the maid servant will not think like that. Similarly, if I'm a pujari who thinks of Krishna as a person, from the moment I'm awake to the moment I sleep, what earrings will I put on Krishna today? What color of clothes will I dress Krishna with? What will I cook for Krishna in the morning bhoga, in the evening bhoga, in the afternoon bhoga? Isn't it? All that will go on. So, of course, we are not at that level, but that's how a person would be who is completely thinking of Krishna as a person, right? Isn't it? So, this is how it's explained here. Thinking of Krishna always as a person is luminous like the sun and is transcendental beyond this material nature. Purport. Siddhadeya Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisance. The process of thinking, Prabhu, you have taken the screen out.
Sorry.
Different screen. No. The process of thinking of the Supreme is mentioned in this verse. The foremost point is that he is not impersonal or white. One cannot meditate on something impersonal or white. That is very difficult. The process of thinking of Krishna, however, is very easy and is factual stated herein. First of all, the Lord is Purusha, a person. We think of the person Rama and the person Krishna. And whether one thinks of Rama or of Krishna, what he is like is described in this verse of Bhagavad-gita. The Lord is Kavi, that is, he knows past, present, and future, and therefore knows everything. He is the oldest personality because he is the origin of everything. Everything is born out of him. He is also the supreme controller of the universe, and he is the maintainer and instructor of humanity. He is the smaller than the smallest. The living entity is 1/10,000 part of the tip of a hair. But the Lord is so inconceivable, small, and that he enters into the heart of this particle. Therefore, he is called smaller than the smallest. As the supreme, he can enter into the atom and into the heart of the smallest and control him as the super soul. Although so small, he is still all pervading and is maintaining everything. By sorry, Prabhu. I have some problem. Okay, yeah. Yeah, he is still all pervading and is maintaining everything. By him, by him, all these planetary systems are sustained. We often wonder how these big planets are floating in the air. It is stated here that the Supreme Lord, by his inconceivable energy, is sustaining all these big planets and systems of galaxies. The word achintya, inconceivable, is very significant in this connection. God's energy is beyond our conception, beyond our thinking jurisdiction, and is therefore called inconceivable, achintya. Who can argue this point? He pervades this material world and yet is beyond it. We cannot comprehend even this material world, which is insignificant compared to the spiritual world. So, how can we comprehend what is beyond? Achintya means that which is beyond this material world, that which our argument, logic, and philosophical speculation cannot touch, that which is inconceivable. Therefore, intelligent. Prabhu, can you lower down my hand? So it is self.
What's the problem with him?
Yeah, yeah, got it. Therefore, intelligent persons avoiding useless arguments and speculation should accept what is stated in scriptures like the Vedas. Bhagavad-gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and follow the principles they set down. This will lead one to understanding. Hare Krishna.
So Prabhupada just gave an explanation of how one can think in 9 ways about the super soul. He gave a description. Krishna said, think of me in this way as Paramatma, and Prabhupada gave an elaboration on how one can do that. Fine. 9 ways to remember the Paramatma. Shata Chakra Yoga. Then in the next verse, Krishna mentions about Shata Chakra Yoga. Prayana Kale Manasachalena Bhaktya Yukto Yoga Balena Chaiva Bhuvor Madhye Pranamavesha Samyak Satarangam Param Purusham Upeti Divyam. One who at the time of death fixes his life air between the eyebrows and by the strength of yoga with an undeviating mind. What does one do with an undeviating mind? Engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion, will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of God. Yoga Balena, by the power of yoga. That Yoga Balena can also be actually translated as Sadhana Balena, by the power of sadhana. By the power of sadhana, one can always fix one's mind on Krishna. Now, this is something which we can even experience on a day-to-day basis. If our morning sadhana is good, our chances of remembering Krishna throughout the day are more. If our morning sadhana is not good, then the chances of remembering Krishna are less, right? So yoga balena, which means by the practice of yoga. For a devotee, it can also mean sadhana balena, by the practice of sadhana bhakti. One can remember Krishna. Purport. Rupanshu Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji Dandavat Pranam. In this verse, it is clearly stated that at the time of death, the mind must be fixed in devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For those who practiced in yoga, it is recommended that they raise the life force between the eyebrows to the Ajahn chakra. The practice of Sat Chakra Yoga involving meditation on the 6 chakras is suggested here. A pure devotee does not practice such yoga, but because he is always engaged in Krishna consciousness at death, he can remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his grace. This is explained in verse 14. The particular use of the word yog balena is significant in this verse because without practice of yoga, whether Satchakra yoga or Bhakti yoga, one cannot come to this transcendental state of being at the time of death. One cannot suddenly remember the Supreme Lord at death. One must have practiced some yoga system, especially the system of Bhakti yoga. Since one's mind at death is very disturbed, one should practice transcendence through yoga during one's life. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Shata Chakra Yoga. So, these are the 6 chakras which are there in a human body. And the process of Shata Chakra Yoga is to elevate the life air or the life force from the lower chakra to the higher. And this they achieve through the process of pranayama. Right? So the soul or the life air is elevated from the lower chakras into higher. Chakra can be compared to a space of energy. It's like a hole, you know. So you lift the soul and place it there and place it there and place it there and place it there. So you see how difficult and mechanical it sounds. Like the soul, you have to push it and go and fit in the next chakra and the next chakra and the next chakra. And then finally, it comes to the highest called Agnya chakra, which is in between the eyebrows. From there, the soul is moved to Brahma Randhara, the hole in the skull, right? And from there, the yogi shoots the soul out of the body. Very technical, next to impossible. Even you can feel that hole in the skull. It's there for everyone. a soft portion is there on the skull. So that's a small hole, and from there the soul is shot out. Fine. These so-called spiritual leaders, they steal away the concepts from the core concepts given by Krishna, and then they add their own hodgepodge information, and then says New Age spirituality. You know, Sadhguru has a book called Inner Engineering. So basically, that framing of word inner engineering is coming from this process only. Like there's external engineering, you work with the machine outside you. So inner engineering means you work with the machine inside you. It is also a mechanical process. You elevate the pranas, the life pairs. It's like engineering basically. You do that. And then you take to the skull and shoot it out. Now, if Sadhguru starts to teach real inner engineering, no one will follow him. I mean, who will follow if he starts teaching Shat Chakra Yoga? It's very difficult to follow. So name is taken inner engineering, but then concept or information is his own. Right? So Shat Chakra Yoga is pretty difficult, very difficult, very difficult. There is a place in Madhya Pradesh. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what is the name of that city, or where they have stiff, rocky cliffs, mountains, and there's rocky surface on the bottom. So many yogis, I think it's Jabalpur. The yogis, they go there and they sit on the top of these rocky cliffs. And when the time comes for them to leave their body, they jump off the cliff, head down like a somersault dive. Why? Because when they land on the floor, their skull should hit the floor and crack open. And and then the soul can leave the body. So pretty risky endeavor. What if instead of landing on the skull, you land on the foot or the leg or the stomach? Then you'll not be qualified again to climb up the cliff and jump again. If the hand or legs get broken. So pretty risky endeavor. Shat Chakra Yoga. Easier is to sit and chat. Hare Krishna. Much more easy. Next. Yadakshanam Veda Vido Vadanti Vishanti Yatayo Vidharakaha Yadichanto Brahmacharyam Charanti Tatte Padam Sangrahena Pravakshe. Persons who are learned in the Vedas, who utter Omkar, and who are great sages in the renounced order, enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. I shall now briefly explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation. So, in the next two verses, then Krishna is going to talk about the requirements for practicing this yoga and the process. What are the requirements? Four things required: renunciation or no attachments, brahmacharya, celibacy, knowledge of the Vedas, uttering Omkara. These are the requirements. What is the process? Pratyahar, closing all the doors of senses, fixing the mind on the heart, that is dharana, fixing the knife here on the top of head, taking shelter of Krishna completely. Now you might be wondering why Krishna is mentioned here. That is Prabhupada's flavor. He added Krishna. Actually, it is taking shelter of the super soul. But then he made it Krishna. 8.11 purport. Uma Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dhanavad. Lord Sri Krishna has recommended to Arjuna the practice of Sat Chakra Yoga, in which one places the air of life between the eyebrows. Taking it for granted that Arjuna might not know how to practice Sat Chakra Yoga, the Lord explains the process in the following verses. The Lord said that Brahman although one without a second has various manifestation and features. Especially for the impersonalities, the Aksara or Omkara, the syllable Om, is identical with Brahman. Krishna here explains the impersonal Brahman into which the renounced order of sages enter. In the Vedic system of knowledge, students from the very beginning are taught to vibrate Om and learn of the ultimate impersonal Brahman by living with the spiritual master in complete celibacy. In this way, they realize two of Brahman's features. This practice is very essential for the student's advancement in spiritual life, but at the moment such brahmachari and married celibate life is not at all possible. The social construction of the world has changed so much that there is no possibility of one's practicing celibacy from the beginning of student life. Throughout the world, there are many institutions for different departments of knowledge, but there is no recognized institution where students can be educated in the brahmachari principles. Unless one practices celibacy, advancement in spiritual life is very difficult. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya has announced, according to the scriptural injunction for this age of Kali, that in this age no process of realizing the Supreme is possible except the chanting of the holy names of Lord Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So Prabhupada is explaining that in this age, as by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the only process possible is chanting of Hare Krishna. Why so? Because in all the other processes, you need to have certain qualification to enter into the process. Whereas the chanting of holy name, which doesn't require that qualification. But in all the other processes, you need some qualification. Maybe knowledge of the Vedas, maybe mind control, sense control, maybe celibacy, maybe sattvic life. So many ifs and buts are there. But when it comes to chanting of holy name, anyone at any stage of life, in any kind of consciousness, can immediately start doing it. Right? Can immediately start doing it. Like even it is not said that you first give up non-veg and then start chanting Hare Krishna. No, you start chanting Hare Krishna. If you're a drunkard, you start chanting Hare Krishna. Not that first you give up your drinking or eating non-veg, then you start chanting. So chanting of holy name makes anyone qualified for the process. And that's why it's the easiest for Kali Yuga. Anyone can do it. It's like universally acceptable. Fine. So that makes it easy. Sarvadvarani samyamya manohriddhi niruddhya cha murdhani adhayatmana pranam asito yoga dharana. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head. One establishes himself in yoga. Purport. Paramgata.
To practice yoga, as suggested here, one first has to close the doors of all sense enjoyment. This practice is called pratyahara, or withdrawing the senses from the sense objects. The sense organs for acquiring knowledge, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and touch, should be fully controlled and should not be allowed to engage in sense gratification. In this way, the mind focuses on the supersoul in the heart and life force is raised to the top of the head. In the 6th chapter, this process is described in detail. But as mentioned before, this practice is not practical in this age. The best process is Krishna consciousness. If one is always able to fix his mind on Krishna in devotional service, it is very easy for him to remain in an undisturbed transcendental trance or in samadhi.
So Prabhupada is then at the end giving the possible process for us, easy one, that you fix your mind on Krishna in devotional service, and that's the easiest way to remain in samadhi, than to go through the Ashata Chakra Yoga process. Yeah? Engage in practical devotional service to Krishna and remain Krishna conscious. It's pretty easy to be Krishna conscious. Process is easier. Next verse.
Hare Krishna. One question. So, so in sixth chapter also it is mentioned, and again, even after Arjuna says that this is impossible, again Krishna is repeating the same thing in the eighth chapter. So 7 to 12 is supposed to be about devotional service, right? But again, we see this process coming into play. So if it was not at all significant, why would Krishna repeat it?
Good question. Krishna has just taken 2-3 verses to explain it. He did that in chapter 7 as well, 7.29. And here also is doing that. The reason why he's doing that is he's only giving a contrast of this process with Bhakti Yoga, to show how this is so difficult in comparison to Bhakti Yoga. So that the process of Bhakti Yoga can be more favorably accepted by the yoga practitioner. So he's making a contrast. That there is a way to remember me through the process of Shatchakra Yoga, and there is a process of remembering me through Ananya Bhakti. Now you see yourself which one is easier. So he's giving a contrast. That's all he's doing. Right?
Okay, I mean, in this eighth chapter, he's actually speaking that for salvation, this is the process, what I'm giving. Right? So he's like, is he, I mean, in 12th chapter again, he'll mention, but that is a contrast because the question asked is specific by Arjuna. But here it was.
There, anywhere, if you see in Bhagavad-gita, anywhere, any form of knowledge is given. Anywhere in Gita, even in Srimad Bhagavatam, we see that the speaker diverges from the main subject matter, goes to the other subjects to create a contrast. That is to highlight the main subject matter. If the contrast is not created, how is the importance of the other subject matter be explained? So, remembering Krishna is the goal as per this chapter. He already mentioned that you remember me at the time of death. But then, if Krishna has to solidify my conviction, I should remember Krishna through devotional service only. He is just showing us there is another way of remembering me, and that is this process. So now you compare these two. Which one is easier? Right? So therefore, you'll see when we look at the verse number 14, verse number 13 closes this section, and then the next one is verse number 14. There, what does Krishna mention? Look at verse 14. Ananya chetaha satatam yomam smarati nityashaha. Look at the word there. Tasyaham sulabha partha. It's creating the contrast. You're getting it? He's creating the contrast. He's saying sulabha partha. So he's explained the difficult process. And now then he's saying, Arjuna, yes, that sounds difficult. So I'm going to tell you now the easier one. What is that? Ananya cheta satatam yomam smarati nityashaha. Tasyaham sulabha partha nitya yuktasi yoginah. So he's saying, Prabhupada translates, for one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain. Usana Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. So contrast has been given. Verse 13. Om iti ekaksharam brahma vyaharan mamanusmaran yah prayati tyajandeham sayati paramam gatim. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual lands. Now, here you see Krishna is promoting chanting of Om. The goal is same, destination is same. We will reach the supreme planets. You chant Om, you think of the Lord, you get to go to spiritual world, enter the spiritual planets. You chant Hare Krishna, you get to go to the spiritual world, enter into spiritual planets. What is the difference? The destination is the same. What is the difference?
One is the highest planet, Loka Vrindavan.
You mean to say by chanting Om, one cannot enter into Golok Vrindavan?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Like when we say Krishna, we are meditating upon Krishna only, and when they are meditating upon Jyoti only, so they
No,
reach that.
no, here is not talking about Brahmajyoti. It's very clear. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not one meditates on Brahmajyoti, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he'll certainly reach the spiritual planets, not the spiritual sky, the Brahman effulgence. He'll reach the spiritual planets. Hmm.
We are referring to,
Process
or
is
we are
different.
basically trying to attain the Madhurya Ras, which Prabhupada has said. So, while fixing our, thinking of Krishna completely, remembering Krishna, and doing devotional service, and then reaching there, we are actually, getting the Ras, enjoying the Ras
Yes.
level. Yeah.
Fine, fine. So you are saying if you chant Hare Krishna, it's sure you'll go to Golok Vrindavan and get into Madhu Golok.
Prabhuji, it will help us reach that. Now it is completely dependent on how we chant, how far are we remembering
So,
Krishna
so
throughout.
basically by chanting Omkar and thinking of Radha Krishna Leela, one will not get into Golok Vrindavan, into Madhu Golok.
Yes, Prabhuji, that's what I think.
Prabhuji, if we chant Om and meditate upon Krishna, then we will reach the Krishna lok. And if we meditate upon the other, demigod, then generally the Om is referred as Shiva. This is my general understanding that people generally, chant the name, chant Om when they are meditating upon Shiva. So if they are meditating upon Krishna, then they will reach Krishna Loka.
Okay. So yes, if they meditate on Krishna, they will enter into Krishna Loka. Therefore, Prabhupada explains in the purport. Kunal Prabhu, what does it say?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. It is clearly stated that it is clearly stated here that Om, Brahman, and Lord Krishna are not different. The impersonal sound of Krishna is Om, but the sound Hare Krishna contains Om. The chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is clearly recommended for this age. So if one quits his body at the end of life chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, he certainly reaches one of the spiritual planets according to the mode of his practice. The devotees of Krishna enters the Krishna planet Goloka Vrindavan. For the personalist, there are also innumerable other planets known as Vaikuntha planet in the spiritual sky, whereas the impersonalists remain in the Brahma Jyotir. Thank you.
Yes. So how do we understand this? It is explained in this way by Baldev Vidyabhushan. And very nicely explained. See, the process of Shat Chakra Yoga and the chanting of Hare Krishna are different in this way. Om is also transcendental sound. Hare Krishna is also transcendental sound. The letter Om or the sound Om is contained within Hare Krishna as well. When we chant Hare Krishna, we are naturally, automatically chanting Om as well, right? But the problem with the chanting of Omkar, not the problem, but the requirement is that just the chanting will not help. You have to also constantly meditate on a particular form. So there are two things that you need to do. You have to vibrate the sound Om, and the mind has to be fixed on a form. That form is like in my words, I explain in this way, that form is the address and the Om is the vehicle. Okay? That vehicle can take you anywhere you want to go in the spiritual world. That vehicle can take you to Brahmajyoti. That vehicle can take you to Vaikuntha also. That vehicle can take you to the abode of Lord Ramachandra. That vehicle can also take you to Golok Vrindavan. Now, where that vehicle will drop you will depend on the address you take that vehicle to. And that address depends on the form on which you meditate constantly. Right? Okay? But when it comes to chanting Hare Krishna, the vehicle and the address are both encapsulated within the chanting. So that extra endeavor of only thinking of Krishna has not to be done. Therefore, Prabhupada said, when you chant, you just chant. Don't even have to meditate on the form of Krishna. You just listen to the holy name. You just chant, right? You don't have to put extra efforts to chant and also meditate on Krishna. You don't have to do that. You just chant the holy name, Hare Krishna. Because within that chanting, there is the vehicle of going back home back to God, as well as the address. Where do you want to go to back home back to God? It makes it further easier basically for the chanter, the process of chanting the holy name. And if it's Om, then it's an indirect address to the Lord. Right? This is what happened, when Gajendra was calling out the Lord, his leg was stuck in the mouth of the crocodile. So Gajendra did not call the Lord by a particular name. He did not call the Lord by a particular name. And because he did not call the Lord by a particular name, when he called the Lord, many people became ready to go and help. Even the demigods became ready to go and help because the demigods thought he's calling us. Indra was ready to go to help. Shiva was ready to go to help. Brahma was ready to go to help. But when all the demigods, they were climbing on their vehicle, carrier, they saw that Vishnu has already climbed on his vehicle and is already flying. They understood, okay, Gajendra is calling Vishnu, not us, wrong number. He's not calling us. When he's calling the Supreme Lord, he means Vishnu. He's not calling us. So then they stepped back. It's okay, fine. Lord Vishnu is going. He's the ultimate Lord. Let him go and save Gajendra. But otherwise, they were thinking, we have to go. So that's how when one chants Om, it becomes very abstract. When chants Krishna Nam, Hare Krishna, it becomes very specific. All right. I think we will stop here. We'll continue from the next verse in the next class. Any
But
questions?
attend the spiritual planets, right?
Attend the spiritual planets.
It is Om is indirect, but attend the spiritual planets, right?
If you are thinking of a form of the Lord in the spiritual world, if you are thinking of Brahmajyoti, then no spiritual planet, then Brahmajyoti.
Okay. Prabhu, can I ask one more? Prabhu, starting you mentioned one who performs the 4, 5 sacrifices. Can you mention that 4 sacrifices, Prabhu?
What?
Starting today's starting class, you mentioned one who performs the 4, 5 sacrifices. Can you mention that sacrifices?
Five fire sacrifices.
5 sacrifices. Can you mention 4, 5?
I don't know. It's just mentioned 5 fire sacrifices. What are those 5 fire sacrifices? It's nowhere mentioned by Prabhupada.
Okay. Not mentioned. Okay.
All right. Any other question?
Yes, bro. So in verse 8.9, we say that the Lord is inconceivable, and there are many times this achintya word comes into play. So here in this verse, it is said that we have to meditate on one who is achintya, one who is beyond our conception. So how do we meditate on one who is achintya if we don't have any conception?
It's mentioned here that it's not mentioned here that you meditate on achintya. It is mentioned here that you meditate on the Lord who you meditate on the Lord as achintya. Let's look at it. Who is inconceivable. So our meditation should be that the Lord is inconceivable. That should be our meditation. This is a quality of the Lord. He is inconceivable. That should be the meditation. Right? Like it's not mentioned here, you should meditate on the smallest of the smallest. Smaller than the smallest. How will I meditate on someone who is smaller than the smallest? The point is you meditate upon him as the smallest or smaller than the smallest. It's a quality which is being referred to. Right? Quality. Achintya is his quality. So I have to meditate on that quality of him. That Krishna is achintya or the Paramatma is achintya. You can see one should meditate upon the Lord, the Supreme Person, as the one who knows everything, right? As the one who is the oldest, as the one who is smaller than the smallest, as the one who is inconceivable. So he is achintya. Achintya is his quality. I have to meditate on that quality of him as achintya.
So basically, are you saying that okay, we see the deity form of the Lord, or we meditate on certain form of Radha and Krishna, and we remember that okay, this form is actually achintya. So we are seeing it as a form. It is achintya. He is smallest of the small.
This process is not for us now. This is for Ashtanga yogi.
Okay.
This is not for us. For us, we don't
Got
have to think of Krishna as the smaller than the smallest. For us, we just look at the form of the Lord. That is our meditation.
Okay.
This is the process for Ashtanga yogi, who is on the path of Shat Chakra Yoga. Now, why he has to think like this? Because he doesn't have the privilege to look at the deity form of Krishna. For someone who is in devotional service, that person is already benefited with a high grade privilege. You want to meditate on Krishna, you don't have to do anything. Just go and stand in front of the deity and you meditate on Krishna. Right? Therefore, it's a nice question which you brought up, Prabhu. Therefore, it's very important to understand Krishna is speaking which verse in Gita for whom, who is the audience. When you don't know that, then you are thinking, how will I apply this in my Krishna consciousness? That's the thing which comes, right? How will I apply this in my Krishna consciousness? But then that process is not meant for you. That's meant for an Ashtanga yogi.
So when we started this section, it was known as Yog Mishra
Remembrance.
Bhakti, right?
Yog Mishra Bhakti, yeah.
So it has an element of devotional service.
For
Of course, it is mixed.
Ashtanga yogi, bhakti is
Okay.
always also present, little bit.
Okay.
For Ashtanga yogi, even bhakti is present. Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, you said that even while we are chanting or in the name, while we are reading Bhagavad-gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, whatever activity that we are doing for Krishna, we should invite him first. If you don't invite him, then it has no meaning. It just remains material. So what is
Yeah,
the
any activity, spiritual activity can be done in a material consciousness also. Not just because we're doing it become spiritual. And the proof is that there are millions of people who are worshipping the deity of Krishna, but for them, the deity of Krishna is only a stone or a statue. There are millions of people who might be reading Bhagavad-gita, but for them, Bhagavad-gita is just a book of knowledge. It's not Krishna Vani, it is just some knowledge. And there are millions of people who might be chanting name Krishna, but for them, the name Krishna is just an ordinary name, right? So, how do you invite Krishna in the name or in the form in the book? It's through your knowledge or your understanding of Krishna. If I have that understanding, when I sit to read Bhagavad Gita, I know I'm going to read Krishna Vani, Krishna's words. Krishna is present in these words. If I am sitting to chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, then I know I'm chanting Krishna Nam. Krishna is present in this name. That's the only thing. That's the understanding. That understanding means you have invited the Lord. It's not that we have to do a ceremony, ring the bell, Krishna, come please in my come in my Bhagavad Gita, come in this name, come in this form. No, that's just a ceremony. Main thing is the understanding.
Even when we do Mangala Charan also, that's also you are praying to Krishna.
Of course, that's invoking auspiciousness or blessings of the Lord.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So that understanding is making the difference.
Thank you.
Any other question?
Hi, Krishna Prabhu. Can I ask you one question?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji, you said that when we chant Mahamantra, we just need to listen to the holy name. We don't need to meditate on Krishna's form. But how will we remember Krishna at the time of death if we don't meditate on his form?
You chant the holy name, then Krishna will come to your mind at the time of death.
Mhm. But we can also meditate on him.
We can meditate on him, but it's not required. We can do that as an extra step. Like you're chanting the holy name, you can keep a picture of Krishna in front of you, and you can have your eyes gazing upon the picture of Krishna. It's okay. But then that's not what is necessary to do, actually. You can just simply chant the holy name.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Because the image created by your eyes, that is different than the image which is created by the pure chanting of the sound of Krishna Nam. When we'll chant Krishna Nam purely, then Krishna will personally appear in our mind's eye.
Yeah, I mean, I get you. That means you're telling me that what I'm thinking about Krishna, it may not be the true picture of him.
Yes, it is picture of Krishna, but it is not realized by you that it is picture of Krishna.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
When Krishna will reveal himself, then what darshan I get of Krishna? That's my realized knowledge of Krishna, that Krishna looks like this.
Yes.
So why we keep a picture? It is only a medium for the eyes, to engage the eyes. The eyes will be looking at so many different things. So instead of the eyes going here and there, keep the eyes on a picture of Krishna.
Yes.
Or it may give you a little bit of inspiration to chant the holy name. It may become a supporting aid in your chanting.
Yes.
So that's why you keep a picture of Krishna. But then it's not that one has to do. And you see anyone, no? You see the videos of Prabhupada chanting the holy name. You see the videos of any other great devotee chanting the holy name. Do you see them keeping a picture in front of them, chanting and looking at the picture? Not always, maybe sometimes, but mostly they're just chanting.
Yes, Prabhu. Also,
Okay.
Prabhu, yes, thank you, Prabhu. Also, Prabhu, I like I see that Krishna is saying that we can practice any type of yoga, like Ashtanga yoga and performing Bhakti yoga to come to him. But some are difficult. Like Ashtanga yoga is very difficult. It's very difficult. It takes a long time to come to him. But why is he giving so much detail about it? Like,
Why is he giving details about it?
yes.
To make us understand how it is difficult. Right? If you have a
Yes.
problem with Krishna giving details, then you can also say, why there are 700 verses in Bhagavad-gita? Why not just 7 verses?
Okay.
So Krishna is giving detail to help us understand.
Yes.
He's repeating, he's giving us detail. Otherwise, he could have given just 7 verses. That would also make Bhagavad-gita complete, no?
Chatushloki Gita, 4 verses.
4 verses, finished Gita. Right? So, why Krishna is giving detail? That's for us to understand. Why should there be a problem? In Bhagavatam also, it's full of explanation on Ashtanga Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, as well as Bhakti Yoga. So much of extra information is there, which is not really directly connected to devotional service. But why is Krishna giving all that information? To help us better appreciate Bhakti. What is the need otherwise? One can very easily say, right? Why Krishna had to give first canto, second canto, third canto, and not just directly 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna Leela. But so that when you come to 10th canto, you will have sufficient appreciation for 10th canto. So therefore, go through the first 9 cantos. If you don't know how Ashtanga Yoga is very difficult, how will you understand Bhakti Yoga is easy?
Okay, understand.
You will not understand that.
Yes.
So that's why that knowledge is given.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Krishna.
Fine. Let's stop here. See you in the next class.